So welcome everyone. My name is Alejandra Arguelles. I'm one of the program coordinators at the Ideas Center. Welcome everyone. For today's WISE session, we have the Teaching and Learning Commons presenting on a really great topic. I know many of you with the shift to remote are looking forward to some new tips and advice, so they'll be presenting on that. Just so you know, we have disabled the chat. However, feel free to ask any questions that you have within the Q&A for today's session. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and pass it on over to Guadalupe and Natalie.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to have you join us today. Was shared with you already, so we're the Academic Achievement Hub. This is one of 6 hubs in the Teaching and Learning Commons, and we're going to talk to you today about remote university learning tips for success. I'm Guadalupe Barreiro, and I am the online learning designer. And I have with me my great co-presenter.
Thank you, Guadalupe. My name is Natalie, everyone. I'm a third-year student here at UCSD, and I'm a learning strategist at the Academic Achievement Hub.
Okay, so we just wanted to start out by really talking about our goals, not only for this session, but really, as students and educators. So our goal, we don't want to just go to class. We don't want to, go through all these things just to study, to get through the test, to get through the next due date. We want to study to learn. So a lot of the things that you're learning are going to go ahead and transfer to your grad school plans, your career paths, and all of that. So there's 2 really key pieces to this. So first, we want to identify resources. So you already have such great resources with the Idea Center, and now we're coming in as the Academic Achievement Hub to show you even more. And this is just going to keep going as you go on through UCSD. There's going to be so many resources that come up. We encourage you to go ahead and reach out and explore them. They're really great, and they're there to support you, not only academically, but also, personally for your own well-being. And we're going to talk to you about some of the different components that really studying and learning contribute to. So the first part of this equation is resources. The next part is really effort. So while effort is necessary, we need to work hard, we study and things like that, you should do so with really effective strategies. So that's going to be some of what we talk about today too. Note-taking, frequent practice, and deep processing to make sure that while you're studying, it's the most effective and that you're maximizing your time and effort in that way. Finally, we really want to make sure that you take advantage of the knowledge that you have at UC San Diego and beyond from your peers, instructor, tutors, staff, and others. You all come from really great backgrounds. We want to make sure that you bring that with you in your knowledge and that you go to office hours, you go to tutoring sessions, you work with your peers to get the most out of it. There's so many great perspectives, and we want to make sure, we learn from different people and think about things in different ways that really maximizes how we view things. So that kind of goes into what I was talking about just now. There's different parts of this. It's pretty complex. It's not just one thing. So really, first and foremost is self-care. We want to make sure we take care of ourselves. We can't fill up other cups if ours is empty, right? So whether that means a face mask and watching some Netflix, FaceTiming your friends, hanging out with family, whatever, helps you feel like you're taking care of yourself, you're giving yourself an opportunity to do things that you enjoy. Make sure that you find time to do that. It's not just all academics. You really need to find time for yourself so that you can put all of your other efforts into making friends and all those other great things, including academics. So then going into it, it's really important to set up a plan, right? There's so many different things going on, especially in an online world. You have asynchronous parts, which means that, it's not happening in real time. Then you have sessions that are in real time, so you have to attend in Zoom or some other platform. So really figuring out where your time is being located, we want to make sure you have a plan for that. So that means keeping up with course information. So looking at Canvas, what notifications come up, what you have to do, quizzes, homework, things like that. And even though you may, edit your Canvas notifications, at least keeping that to 1 a day so that you know what's going on is really helpful to keep you in the loop, figuring out how your time is changing and things like that. So the rest of it we're really going to go into through the session, so I won't spend too much time on it, but managing your coursework, finding a space, time and goals, recorded lectures or live lectures, how to manage those, motivation, time efficiency, and note-taking. So we're going to go ahead and start with some tips to minimize distractions. So first and foremost, you have a space. So this may be your own space. This might be a shared space. We want to make sure that you make it yours in some way. Make sure you have your materials, you have everything you need, and that if it is a shared space or even your own space, you have the time set up so that you can accomplish what you need there. This is also part of the next part, which is communication, but making sure that you have something that is really encouraging your learning process and helping you study in that time. So that kind of goes into the communication. So sometimes it's really hard coming home or being with roommates or wherever you may be with distractions, right? They want to come talk to you, they want to hang out with you, and it's really fun to be with them, but sometimes you got to crack down and study, you know? And so I know coming home for me, it was kind of hard sometimes. I had the TV going, I had all these different things, I had our pets coming up. So talking to them, you know, they can't read your mind, but letting them know, hey, I'm sorry, I have to study. I promise I'll have time for you later. Not making them feel neglected or like you just want to stay in your room and be, you know, sometimes parents think, oh, I don't want to come out or something like that. But just letting them know, okay, this is when I'm going to be studying, and then this is when I can go and hang out with you all. So really discussing your expectations and needs. And one really great tool to do that is having a shareable calendar or schedule. So this is something you could print, something that may be virtual, whatever is more comfortable for you all. But sharing it with them, talking it through and saying, okay, these blocks mean please don't bother me for now. Then I have a set this time for us to have dinner or to have lunch and talk and hang out and have fun. And talk about all those different things that you set aside, making sure that they still feel, you know, like they're part of your lives in some way. And then the last part is preparation. So like I kind of alluded to in the first part, having your space is making sure you have everything you need. So whether that's your textbook, notes, device, highlighters, sticky notes, anything that you need for your learning and to stay focused. Sometimes it's hard, you know, you forget something when you're first, you know, getting into the quarter, you're like, oh shoot, I left my highlighter somewhere else. So keeping that in mind and making sure you have everything in one space. If you have a shareable space where maybe you need to move things around, having like a backpack or some kind of bag where you can place everything in and keep it together. This not only helps you keep it together, but it makes sure things don't get lost sometimes. I know when you're having a shared space, people borrow things and then, you know, it ends up ending up somewhere else in the house. So really keeping your things together will help you be prepared. And then I'll hand it over to Natalie for the rest.
Thank you, Guadalupe. All right, so here are other 2 tips for minimizing distractions. The first one is steering away from electronic devices when you're doing your work. So, for example, when you're in a remote lecture, what you should be doing is closing all unnecessary tabs. It's recommended that the only thing that you should have open in terms of your laptop / your computer is that Zoom meeting and any other notes that you use. So for example, if you're typing up your notes or even if you're writing your notes, those are really the only 2 to 3 things that you should have out. So scrolling through social media like on Google or something is not a good idea because your attention will be steered away from the lecture, which is not what you want. And then another thing you can do in terms of electronic devices is disabling notifications. So for example, on iPhone, you can really like just click the toggle for the turn off notifications, or you can even do like do not disturb for an iPhone. And I'm sure on other devices like Androids and things like that, they do have other types of settings for that. So you can also disable those and then turn it back on right after the lecture or after you're done with your study session. And then the second part is avoiding multitasking. So believe it or not, humans are not very good at multitasking, even if you think you are good at multitasking. The link that's underlined right there where it says the magic of monotasking, that leads you to a kind of brief article about this. And I think these slides will be provided afterwards, or at least the article link, and you can read up on that on yourself, by yourself. And then, so it basically just telling you that even if you do try to do multiple things at once, you're most likely not going to be able to effectively do both things in a good and effective way. So multitasking is not great, especially when you're trying to, for example, watch Netflix and do your homework at the same time, or watch Netflix and study, for example. So one thing that you can utilize in order to kind of help, put in those breaks and things like that is the Pomodoro technique. So for those of you who haven't heard about it, it's a way of kind of chunking out your schoolwork and kind of like chunking out study sessions. So it's essentially 4 to 5 steps. The first step is deciding on what task you want to do. So you want to essentially set a goal. So for example, your task could be, I want to finish my math homework, or I want to finish my chemistry homework. And maybe you can chunk it out. So for example, I want to finish the first 3 problems of my chemistry homework due this Friday. Something like that is a good goal, because you can see here in step 2, you're only working for about 25 minutes. So you want to keep the goal pretty specific, so that it's realistic and that you can actually finish it in the time allotted. So you want to set a time to do whatever it is that you set in step 1. So set a timer for about 25 minutes. After the time is up, you can take a short break for 5 minutes. This is just so that your mind gets a mental break and you're able to get up, get some movement, let the material process in your mind. So that's really what the break is for. Just keep in mind though, in the break, you want to be sure to not take too long of a break. So the 5-minute break hopefully should not turn into like an hour-long break where you just get lost in watching your favorite TV show or talking to a friend for an hour too long. So just be wary of your time. You might need to set a timer for your break if you do get sidetracked very easily. So that's step 4. And then you can repeat this cycle for other study sessions or other tasks that you have to do. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So these are other tips that are crucial to learning. So we have here on the slide 3 things. So the first thing is note-taking. Note-taking, as you all know, is something that you can do when you're in lecture. So it's a way to help you stay alert and focused, especially in remote courses. And listed on the slides here are 4 benefits of note-taking. So the first one here is that it's time saving. So when you take notes, you're writing down or you're typing up anything that is very important, so that when you go to do your homework or when you go to study, you can remember this particular concept, for example, or this particular example, and what were the steps and explanations and reasonings behind these particular lecture examples. The second benefit that's shown here is reinforcing learning. So the act of actually writing notes down is proven to actually help improve your learning and retain memory. So that's reinforcing learning. And then it also goes along, I guess I skipped the gun a little, it also helps stimulate memory. So that's note-taking. And then the second one is practice testing. So practice testing is something that you can do on a regular basis. So for example, instead of just having to study only when an exam comes up, you can study regularly even when an exam is not coming up. Although I know it is the end of week 3, and I'm sure most of you already have midterms already, or due at least starting next week, I assume. So now's a good time to actually utilize this practice testing. So an example of practice testing could be asking yourself open-ended questions on a regular basis. So for example, what you can do in your notes is kind of create questions regarding the material and kind of create them on, for say, a sticky note or maybe like an index card, and regularly look at the index card / sticky note on a regular basis, maybe even a couple times a day or maybe like once a day leading up to the exam. This way you're actively testing yourself, and it's better than actually cramming large amounts of information the night before the exam, for example. All right, and then the next thing is distributed practice. So you want to make, this one's related to practice testing, in that you want to make sure you review your study material multiple times when leading up to the exam. So this helps improve recall and reconsolidation of memory or skill. What you can also do is make summaries of the material. So sometimes I know lecture notes can be extremely long, like a few pages long, especially for like problem-based course. So you can always summarize the main concepts or the main reasoning behind certain lecture notes and things like that. So that's what you can do in distributed practice. Thank you. All right, so these are also a couple of other tips. So the first one is reaching out to people maybe in the same program or class as you in your classes. So this is just important to make connections and network with others, because a lot of the times when you meet other people in your class, you end up talking about the material, maybe even, you know, discussing homework, maybe not exactly telling each other the answers, but going through the process of things like that, that can be really helpful to form study groups. The second thing you can do is meet other people in your actual program that's not like class related. So a lot of the times, like the Idea Center or your departments have like social events and things like that. Those are nice to go to just so that you can get some interaction with other people and network with other people and meet a diverse amount of people and see other people's perspectives on things. All right, so let's see what else there is. So the fourth one here is combating isolation and imposter syndrome. So with remote learning, we're all pretty isolated now. You know, we're all in our like own houses or own dorms or own apartments and things like that. So it's very easy to feel isolated. So the reason why we're giving you these tips is just so that you can have a sense of normalcy and, you know, still have some sort of interaction with others, even if it's not face-to-face, but maybe through a virtual Zoom call, like a virtual study group, or setting up a time to Zoom with your friends or something like that. And then for imposter syndrome, for those who haven't heard of it, it's the feeling of like, I don't belong where I am. For example, for you all, it might be, I don't belong in this engineering department. I don't belong in this engineering major. You don't want to think like that, because you got to where you are because of your hard work that you did in high school, for example. So try not to feel like you don't belong where you are. And it is easy to feel out of place, especially when classes get hard and then you see maybe other people are understanding the material faster than you are. You might feel like you have imposter syndrome. So try to have a growth mindset and yeah. And then let's see what else there is. Yeah, so at the bottom there are just a couple recommendations of software that you can use. Like GroupMe, for example, is great. Slack, these are like chatting platforms that you can use, and WhatsApp. And then other things that you can use in terms of resources are Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, Microsoft Teams, and all the other things listed on there that you can read on the slide. All right, so these next few slides are going to go through resources that are available to all of you for free. So the first one is Learning Strategist. I did mention earlier that I am a learning strategist, so I am physically a resource for you guys throughout your whole entire academic year. So what we as learning strategists do is we assist in learning how to study for success, specifically at college, and managing your time throughout the quarter system. So for example, a lot of the things that we do are workshops, and our workshops can be found on our Canvas course, which we'll talk about more later. And the second component of what I mainly do is one-on-one appointments. So I meet with students one-on-one, and a lot of the times I do discuss a lot more in depth a lot of the things that we're talking about today, but more on a unique level that is more personal and more unique to that student's schedule. So we're very trained in learning and developmental theories, science and psychology of learning and thinking, and metacognition, which is essentially thinking about your own thought process and how you think. And then on the right side of the slide here, these are just a couple of topics that a lot of the times we do touch bases on. So time management, skills to study effectively and efficiently, develop problem-solving skills, build critical thinking skills, analyze and critique content, and define and achieve academic goals. All right, and then another resource is Content Tutoring, which is also completely free, and it's completely online for at least the fall quarter. tutoring is great whenever you want to get questions asked, for example, clarifying concepts, getting help on homework or similar homework problems. So tutors are trained to help you learn and give you tips on how to study and how to approach problems and things like that. So tutoring is great whenever you have questions and maybe you can't make it to office hours, or tutoring hours are more available and better for your schedule. That's great to use. And then this slide right here goes over the workshops that we have. So essentially it's under 3 big topics. So MCAT workshops, which are geared towards pre-meds, and then how to learn for organic chemistry, and then the topic-specific workshops. And then the topic-specific workshops are based off 3 different subjects. So the Chem 6 series, the Math 3C, 4C, 10A, and 20A. Those are the ones that I do. And then the third one is Physics 1 series. And the last part of the kind of schematic here is the topics that each of the workshops go over. So you can also read those too on your own.
Okay, so then we also have our supplemental instruction, our study groups. You may have received emails about this already, but what SI or SG is that there is a student that's taken your course before and gotten a B+ or better, and they actually go in there and they are in your class, they facilitate, they do create sessions basically based off what you do in your lecture, whether that's asynchronous or synchronous. And then they have chances for you to not only work through problems, understand concepts, but get to know other students in your class. So you get to talk about these things, verbalize it, think through it in different ways, and come to a conclusion in that way. So this is really helpful. I know sometimes we have a lot of practice problems, and sometimes, the professor switches this one little thing up and it kind of can trip us up, right? So this is a great way to kind of work through that and understand the concepts of, okay, if this changes, then I know what it means in the equation and what to do. So the difference between the two, study group is part of supplemental instruction, but SI meets 3 times a week, for 50 minutes, while study groups only meet once a week for 80 minutes. And then we'll talk about a few other resources, and then at the end, we'll show you what classes we do currently support. So another resource is keeplearning.ucsd.edu. So we worked on this in partnership with another hub at the Teaching and Learning Common, and it has some really great resources and strategies for remote learning success. It's really a starting point, kind of like an overview of some tips that you can use. And there's 3 key areas. So the learning strategies are what we worked on. They also have great tips for tools and technology, and then other resources and support. So a big thing we've been really stressing is, it's not just learning in isolation or learning with only one resource. We want to make sure that you have access to the various resources on campus. So this is one way for you to be directed to what some of those are. So then the other part that Natalie talked about a little bit were the Learning Strategies Canvas course. So that's on Canvas, so it's integrated, where all your other courses are. You can go on our website, which we'll give it to you at the end, and you'll self-enroll. So basically what's on there are all of these different workshops that are pre-recorded, and you would go through them, listen, and then there's worksheets that you can complete. And then a tip that I would recommend is that after you work with that, you can set up an appointment with a learning strategist to talk about what you got out of that workshop, what you created, how, any other tips that you need, questions, whether it worked or not, how else we can support you, and that's where the personalized help comes in. So using both of those together really will give you the most benefits out of that, and that's what I would recommend here. So this is just an overview of the different courses that we support. So I'll just pause for a moment and let you view this. And if for some reason there's a course that's not listed here that you do need support in, feel free to email us. Our email is aah@ucsd.edu. I think it's at the end also. And so you can just email us and then we'll see if we can find some support for you. Just because your course isn't on here, don't think that there's no support for you. We will work to make something happen. And that is the end of our presentation. This is our email. And I think we'll go ahead and see what's been happening.
Feel free to ask any questions that you all have for our panelists within the next few minutes. This session was recorded, so if there are any questions, we'll be uploading this to our YouTube channel per the Teaching and Learning Commons approval. But again, feel free to ask any questions. If not, feel free to log off. We thank you for coming. Hopefully you got some good tips. And again, feel free to reach out to them for more tips and advice.